Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Thoughts for Change Makers LinkedIn Live, where we challenge the status quo, elevate performance, and foster exponential growth. Today, my guest is Ronnie Altit. He is changing the corporate culture landscape. So, as a founder of Insentra, a global IT service business, Ronnie has always dared to be different. His vision is to create an outstanding workplace where the crew can be the best version of themselves, love the work they do, inspire their teammates and even their clients every day. And recently, it's been working because recently, Insentra has been awarded seventh in the top 10 best places to work. So Ronnie is going to share with us much more. I can't wait. But overall, his approach to corporate culture is simple and based on transparency, honesty, and creating an open environment where his team can flourish. So Insentra won many awards, and I like one of them that is called Top 20 Coolest Company in Tech. So I like this one. And as well, we will dive a bit later on Ronnie's CEO Vinny Sleep Out mission. I'm curious about that one. That's, in fact, why I wanted him to share today more insights. But most importantly, what I really want to share with you and hopefully with transparency is that how Insentra grew and try to maintain at all costs a good culture, a great culture. So a lot of challenges, I guess, along the way, and Ronnie will tell us more about that. So, and by the way, if you are coming live, please tell us where you are coming from so we know a bit about you. You can ask questions to Ronnie. I will share them on the screen as they come along. So, hi, Ronnie. One question I like to ask to all my guests on this show is, what is the definition of team performance for you?
Yeah, hi, Lizon. Thank you very, very much for having me on your show. I'm very flattered that you've asked me to join. Definition of team performance, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, look, I think it's not just about team performance, it's about performance in general. And what we aspire to is really to create this high performance culture where mediocrity is just not okay. If you want to be okay, you can be okay almost anywhere. But I think performance is really driven by outcomes. That's how really you can measure performance, is the outcomes that are there. And outcomes doesn't necessarily have to be just a business outcome. It can be an outcome could be how collegiate a team is, how a team supports one another, how a team works well together, how they deal with adversity, how they deal with challenges. All of those things come together to create that high performing team, and that team that wants to go and achieve and be better and grow and develop. So I think when we talk about, what is team performance, it's so many different things. And it's often most leaders that I've engaged with and what I see a lot of material around is really just what are they achieving and how well are they achieving and how efficiently are they getting there, etc. But there's just so much more nuanced underneath that creates that environment where a team can feel comfortable and confident to perform, can feel comfortable to fail, can feel comfortable to make mistakes without retribution. All of those things come together to make a team perform. So that's, it's not as simple as just what's team performance. There's so many things involved.
I know, and that's why I love to ask these questions, because everyone got a different spin as well on that, and that's what make it interesting, in my opinion. So for the people that are joining us and that maybe they haven't heard about Insentra, can you share a bit more about what is Insentra, what are you doing, and what's been the journey so far?
Yeah, sure. So you did sort of say that I dare to be different. Insentra, we dared to be different as well. We started our business on April Fool's Day in 2010, in the height of the global financial crisis. And our vision from that day to this day hasn't changed, which is really to be the #1 channel services company on the planet. So just the start date doesn't make us different. What makes us different is that the whole essence of our business model is to work exclusively with partners. So we don't transact direct with any end user organizations. We absolutely engage with them directly, but we don't transact directly. So the aim of our business is either to augment the capability of channel partners where they perhaps don't have that skill, they are running out of that skill, they're finding it hard to find people. So there's an augmentation that happens there. But where we do a lot of our work is where we become the capability for a channel partner. And so when they want to get into a new market or a new technology area that we are skilled and capable in, they have the confidence that we're not going to steal their customer. We're not going to go and transact direct. But we are so hell-bent on partnering that I trademarked the term partner obsessed globally, because we are obsessed with partnering. And so the whole aim of our business is to help partners grow. And as a consequence of partners growing, we grow with them. So that's been the essence of the business.
Okay.
In terms of the journey, so we started in 2010. About 7 years ago, we started operations in the UK and the US at the same time. In hindsight, would I do that again? No, I wouldn't start two global locations concurrently within a 12-month period. However, it's worked out really well. So now we're a global organization. There's about 150 people at any given point in time in the business. And of those 150, I couldn't give you the exact numbers now, but I could say at least 135 of those would be permanent crew. And you note that I use the word crew. I really have a fundamental issue with the term employee. I think the concept of employer-employee creates a master-servant relationship. Whereas for us, we're all part of the crew. We all get on and do what we need to do. So yeah, that's kind of the journey in a nutshell. Not to take too much time talking about Insentra, but yeah, that's sort of where we came from, where we're going, or where we are, and we're going to continue down that path.
Thank you for sharing, Ronnie. And while you were explaining this notion of like being partner obsessed, I like to share this notion that I really like is like, I see you guys as the shadow leaders so that the front leaders are doing the best work. So you are in the background and you are there to make sure that they can shine and thrive with whatever activities they are undergoing. And you are the shadow leaders. So you are also leaders and maybe a bit more in the shadow. And I think this role is crucial for success. Like any front leaders usually have a shadow leader in the back. They got their back. And I'm just also curious, like behind you, I can see, behind you, it's you have Insentra and you have a train. And you talk about crew. I wasn't sure if it's linked or not. Like I'm curious to understand, why do you have a train
it's 100%
with the logo of the company?
Yeah, it's 100% linked. There is definitely a positive correlation between referring to our team as the crew and the train image that you see. And there's a analogy that we run through the business, which is that Insentra is like a steam train. And if any of your viewers want to know more about that, simply Google Insentra train story, and they'll be presented with realistically what is how we do what we do. And we're very open and public about that. So the idea of the train story is, and why did I choose a train so many years ago, which would have been 20 years ago or so when I was starting to manage people, maybe 30 even, show my age. The whole idea of having selected a train is there are multiple carriages which represent the different parts of our business. The train operates in unison. It all is heading in one direction. It can't, if a carriage is going to come off, we've got a problem. So everything operates in one direction in unison with everyone who's working on the train seeking to achieve the same outcome. And the analogy continues, and there's many different places where the analogy comes in terms of conductors and train drivers and passengers being our partners and their clients, and the experience we want them to have on the train, the behaviors we expect from our crew on the train. Very, very transparent. Very, very upfront. So everyone knows what's expected. Everyone knows what we do tolerate, what we don't tolerate. And just, I think what lacks a lot in a lot of organizations is that absolute transparency. And for everyone, I think once everyone knows the rules of the game, they can play the game. But if they don't know the rules of the game, or the rules keep changing all of the time, then they're forever trying to work out how to game the game. And that's what we wanted to avoid. And the whole essence of the train story is to have everybody beating to the same drum, or fueling the same coal fires with coal. And we chose the steam train, which I know is odd when you're in a high-tech industry and you're talking about the latest, and we're still sitting there with a steam train. But I haven't yet found an AI-driven train that's going to be effectively going to give us the same outcomes.
Yeah, that's all good, because I guess sometimes we want to explain complexity, but that's really hard. So we have to come back to what is simple and that everybody can understand. And sometimes, in the tech industry, you can have a lot of jargons for everything. So simplicity can be like a breath of fresh air. And I'm curious if you have people watching, this LinkedIn Live, do you have, or do you know organization as well that have like metaphor like this train, where they can articulate what are the rules and how we play, so it's clear for everyone. So now, so from the get-go, did you focus on like building a great culture, or did it
100%.
come a bit later? Like,
No,
how was your
absolutely.
philosophy?
No, everything that I was about was ensuring we could create an outstanding corporate culture. That's always been my number one priority. I always say as well that our crew are my number one priority. And if I can have my crew and our crew as my number one priority, that will then enable them to have our clients as their number one priority. So I'm very transparent with our clients as well. I say, you're not my number one priority until you need to be. When you need to be, of course, you will be my priority. But right now, my priority is our crew and ensuring that they have the best environment that they can work in, that they're as happy as what they can be. And let's face it, not everyone's going to be happy 100% of the time. We're not sort of living in sunshines and rainbows and unicorns every day, but doing whatever we can. And it's not just me. It's the whole executive team. It's the leadership team that follows them. And more importantly, it's each and every crew member that is a custodian of our culture. However, it starts from me. It starts at the top. And it started with me at the top from day one. This is the environment we're going to create. This is the behaviors we want in this organization. We're going to be very open about it. Hence why we share that manifesto publicly. Anyone is welcome to read it. And some people might read it and say, oh, it's got too many expletives in it. Or they may read it and say, I don't really want to work in that environment. Or others might go, wow, I really want to work in that environment. More often than not, what we get is, that sounds too good to be true after people read it. So yeah, it's been a very deliberate and conscious creation of the culture. No question.
Yes. And 8 billion of people on the planet, I think. So obviously it's not a fit for everyone. And I guess the more upfront you are, the more effective maybe your recruitment onboarding process can be, to see whether like it's a fit for both parties. But so what are the challenges you've faced along the way in building the culture?
Yeah, that's not a question I can answer in a very short space very easily, because there's been a lot of challenges.
Pick one. Pick a few, or a theme.
Yeah, I will give you a number of. It is the theme of what we're talking about. So if we do take a lot of time on this one, I think that's what people are looking to understand. It's all very well and good to say, oh yes, we do this fantastic stuff. But I think the benefit for the viewers of this particular session is, what are the challenges, and also how do we attempt to overcome them, and how did we overcome them? Because ultimately, when you're creating a corporate culture, at its core, you're dealing with people, and every person is different to the next person. So what works for one may not work for the other. The interpretation of what you're trying to achieve, it will be colored by the lens that people come into the organization with based on their experiences. Oh, I've heard all of this before, for example, or this just seems like lip service. So one of the challenges that's been really key is, and it's not been a challenge, it's been a focus more than anything else, is consistency. So if we say we're going to behave and do something, then we need to behave and do what it is that we say. We can't falter from that. So, and we can't allow the bottom line to influence what we actually truly stand for as an organization with the crew of people that we've had. So it's not so much a challenge as much as it is ensuring that we have that deliberate, conscious focus from everyone. Where the challenge comes in with that is it's all well and good that I have this approach. How I impart that upon others, how my executive team takes that and acts on a day-to-day basis. And then as we grew, how did we get our middle management to come across to our way of doing things? Because again, they have come in with their old ways of doing things, their old lenses. So let me give you perhaps an example of one of the things that's really important for us, and we call it the pebble in the shoe. So the whole idea of the pebble in the shoe is, because I don't like corporate shenanigans. I don't, politics happens in every organization. We operate with a zero politics approach, but I know there's politicking that will happen. So long as it's positive politicking, because it's people trying to work out how to get something done that's positive rather than on top of each other. But what always happens in organizations is somebody does something that bothers somebody else. And that is the root of all evil in most teams and most companies, is some personality conflict that can happen. Or it could be a misunderstanding between two people and someone feels aggrieved by a behavior, etc. Our whole focus there is deal with it when it's a pebble in your shoe. So just when you start to feel that niggle, that's when you need to go and deal with that particular issue. And if you don't, then that pebble is going to stay in your shoe. You're going to walk with a pebble in your shoe and you're going to end up with a blister. And when you end up with a blister, it's going to hurt a lot more because that behavior may continue to happen, or the lens that you look at that person through might just give you additional confirmation bias they're doing it. That's not to say that it's not happening. It's just that the more something happens, the more you start to see what it is that is, further verifying your own view of things. And if you don't deal with the blister's going to go gangrenous. When it goes gangrenous, then you're going to have your foot locked off. It gets harder and harder and harder to deal with what was originally a pebble, that if we dealt with the pebble, that would actually make all the difference. However, not everybody is comfortable to have a pebble in the shoe conversation. Not everybody has the confidence to have a pebble in the shoe conversation. And when I'm interviewing people, because I interview everybody who starts at Insentra before they do, I always tell them this story, which is what you see in the train story happens most of the time. Most of the things in the train story happen most of the time. Some of the things that don't happen in the train story aren't for lack of volition. They're actually because of the individual who perhaps doesn't know how to do it. So they may not like conflict. They may be concerned about how is that going to be received. By example, someone starts in the business, 2 weeks later, they're in a meeting with me as the CEO. I say or do something that puts a pebble in their shoe. What's the likelihood they're going to ring me afterward and say, Ronnie, I have a pebble in the shoe with you? If they did, I would love it. I would jump through the screen, or I would want to hug them and say, thank you so much for telling me this. What do we do? Let's address it. But the reality is people would create a whole lot of stories as to why they wouldn't do it. And therefore, they may carry that pebble. So the key for us has been identifying that and having our leaders understand that to help others in the crew who may struggle with it, or if they have tried to have a pebble in the shoe conversation and it's been a challenge. Whereas, some of the people that we've had come into middle management have come from an organization where it's like, don't worry about it, just move on, or have entertained that in previous lives. We won't entertain it. We don't want to let things fester. So a lot of it is, how do we get, and we did have that challenge sort of probably 12 or 18 months ago. We identified that some of the things that we had become innate in those that had been in the organization for a long time, because we'd brought in some new middle management as we'd scaled, those things were harder to ensure that they were going to continue to be put through. So a lot of training, a lot of time spent with teams, a lot of time spent with the leadership, and also the creation of an environment where any of our crew could raise their hand and say, I'm not happy with this. I thought this should have been a pebble. This has happened now, and we can uncover it, and then give training to the right people so that it doesn't happen again. It's a constant focus. It's not set and forget, write the train story, leave it there and don't worry about it. It needs to be a constant focus day in, day out of what each individual's experience is and addressing it without, of course, one of the things in the train center, we're not an adult daycare center. So, of course, underlying all of that, we want people to behave like adults, not like children. We expect them to behave like adults. And if we have that as a basis where people feel comfortable to raise things, then that's okay. But getting that consistency where all the leaders can operate in that way, getting the crew to trust that what we say we'll do, we do, that's been challenging. And the consistency is the answer. Lots of things in that one, Lizon.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm pausing as well to allow people watching now to get into it. But while you were talking, I felt that I was invited to open the door of the train and to look at what's happening. So I could see maybe sometimes some people are raising hands courageously because that's usually require courage. And they say, hey, I think I have a pebble. Can we just look at it? And that's true. I had another picture in my mind that if you start to have more and more people with pebble in the shoes and they do nothing, so they stay in their status quo, I could see the train slowing down, or the train starting to dislocating, or I could see that the train was losing momentum and was not like and to get the train in momentum, definitely, we need consistency, because sometimes, we take things for granted. And in fact, it requires, as you said, like intent, being deliberate, and consistency. And consistency in anything. Like most of the time, consistency can feel boring, but I think consistency is sexy because, like, when you play the game, you play those rules of consistency, you can unlock different levels of, maybe, I don't know if you play games, like level of unlocking things. I don't know if the train went in that world a bit, like unlocking different thing that you didn't know was coming because of consistency, but you didn't know about that because of consistency that would happen.
Yeah, and so I think there's, when we talk about that, and I'll take what you've said and give you an idea of how that operates. So consistency insofar as these are our fundamental core beliefs. These are our core values. So we have a number of values. First, we have honesty, integrity, and trust. I refer to those as our irrefutable values. If you are dishonest, if you lack integrity, and if you can't be trusted, get off the train. And if you don't think that you're going to take yourself off the train, I will get you off the train. Someone, and it won't even be me, the team will get you off the train. No one wants to work with people they don't trust, people who aren't honest, and people who don't have integrity. And in a partner-only model, those three things are critical. Critical. We all know, those people in the IT industry all know the shenanigans that happen between one organization and the partner, where there's some dishonesty or integrity that's been lost, etc. I'm not going to have that. Then we have other values around accountability, service excellence, celebration, efficiency, all wrapped around with a philosophy of one team, one dream. Those values there, accountability, celebration, efficiency, and service excellence, I call those our aspirational values. Because I haven't met one person that I know who is 100% accountable, 100% efficient, 100% of the time delivers service excellence as opposed to service goodness, or celebrates every win. So I call those aspirational, not because they're not important, because they're super critical, but I respect the fact that we have humans in the business that aren't always going to be operating that way. So if we're consistent with our values, and if we are consistent with a fundamental approach where everybody is a custodian, and I say to people, say to our crew in our all hands, once every couple of months, I will remind everybody, if you love our culture, don't let it change. Don't let it change. If you see something that doesn't feel right with the way we would normally do things, raise your hand. Because if you come to me and say, Ronnie, the culture's really changed in 6 months, I'm going to ask you to take your phone out and put it on selfie mode and have a really good hard look at yourself and say, what did I do to let this happen? Because you didn't just wake up and say, culture's changed. You watched it happen. So as custodians, they need to ensure that our culture doesn't change. And when things do come up, to your point around leveling up, we haven't catered for every scenario, every happening, every personality type, every individual thing that might happen. The consistency doesn't mean that we can't entertain new things and pivot and change and say, well, actually, you know what? That's been working, but it needs this tweak, or it needs this twiddle, or we need to educate, train more. We need to bring people along a lot more. That's the consistency, rather than getting feedback, doing nothing with it. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to work in that environment. And so an overarching thing for us, people say, how did you come up with this, Ronnie? And I'm like, it's actually really simple. We do all the things that most people want to see happen in a workplace. We don't do the things that most people don't want to have happen in the workplace. And the things that we don't know about, we kind of work it out based on the first two.
That's it. I think that's gold nuggets, what you just said. That 3 sentences. So I'm waiting for some questions, because I'm sure people watching, they are very curious, and I'm sure they have questions for Ronnie. And guess what? I'm sharing. So if you want to pop a question in the chat, you can. I'm happy to share it.
I'd love a question. The harder the better.
Yes. So now, you remember, I know I like to talk a bit more about you, and your experience with CEOs, Vinny Sleep Out. So can you share a bit more about why you did that, and what did it brought maybe to you, and then you could bring back to your philosophy in business?
Yeah, sure. So I think everybody talks about giving back, and there's a whole lot of vernacular around philanthropy, etc. And I think anything around philanthropy needs to come from within. And there was nothing specific that had happened in my life or that I had seen that made me want to do the CEO Sleep Out. It was actually, I had seen that this was happening. I'm like, what a cool immersive experience. And I didn't know too much about homelessness when I first did the event, and I've done it now 7 times. When I first did the event, I took a lot from the event. I learned a lot. For me, homelessness was the people I'd see on the streets. I had no visibility, no understanding of people in shelters, those who couch surf, those who sleep in their cars, people who are in multiple different scenarios that effectively render them homeless, where they don't have their own roof over their own heads. That was a real eye-opener for me. And doing the immersive experience of being out there was very, very profound in the first year. And I say that in the first year, I felt I took a lot from the event, despite raising funds and giving those funds, obviously, for the event. In subsequent years, I felt I give more to the event because I'm taking less out of it at a personal level. What I did take out of it, though, was the ability to share with everyone in our organization how broad an issue this might be, how broad an issue it is, and the things that people could do differently, and the awareness around it. And one of the things I love about that event is, yes, there's a group of CEOs, and a lot of people would think, oh, it's just a big networking event, etc. I tell you, 7 years of doing this event, there's no networking that happens. Sure, you're meeting people, but people are all there for the cause. They're not there to try and become business focused and generate business from the event. So I think it's that. It's also I don't do these things so that people can say, oh, well done, Ronnie, you've done those things. I do those things because it's really important. And I've also done Ronald McDonald House, and I did an immersive experience within Ronald McDonald House as CEOs there, understanding that, and as an organization, our philanthropic causes are children and cancer. So, of course, Ronald McDonald House ticked both of those things. And I feel like those immersive experiences are really incredible from a personal growth perspective, and then being able to come back and share that growth, not just with our crew, but in a situation like this, and share some information and raise awareness, not just raise funds.
Yeah, I love it. Raise awareness, not just funds. And thank you for sharing, because I think sometimes we can see things on social media, and we need to take that with a pinch of salt, because you never know what really is happening and how things are running. So we have a question, Ronnie, from someone on LinkedIn. I let you read it. Yeah.
So there's a few things there. The first one has to be crew retention. So looking at our retention rate and understanding what our involuntary turnover is. And what I mean by involuntary is those people who we otherwise didn't want to see leave the organization, people that we wanted to keep, people that we had done something that perhaps prompted them to leave. That's a very key metric for me, because those are the ones where I'm really keen to understand. And when someone does resign, I'm always asking, is it the company or is it the role? What's making you want to leave? If it's the role, then either we can adjust the role, provide the role or the opportunity they've got. If we can't match it, go forth, take it. If it's the company, I get deeply concerned, because I want to understand. I start from a place of concern. I don't start from the place of, oh, it's just one person, that's just their view. It's like, well, this is their experience. There's got to be some wisdom in that. So definitely tracking the involuntary crew turnover and in their exits, and being able to understand what it is that made them want to leave is a key metric. The other metric really is every day in every meeting that's got 3 or more people in it, those meetings start with a very simple but profound question of, how are you? 1 to 10 personally, 1 to 10 business-wise. Because I think another flaw in a lot of organizations is that they don't recognize that everybody has a personal life, and things that happen in their personal life will have a direct flow on to how they are at work. If they've had a wonderful morning at home, they're going to come to work very happy. If they've got health issues with one of their family members, they're going to be concerned about that and thinking about how they need to deal with that. That's going to bleed into work. So we always start any meeting with those questions. And it's interesting because when people start, they're a 10 and a 10. Just that's like, oh, I'm a 10 and a 10, because they're not sure. Once they see those who have been in the organization for a while and they recognize it's actually okay to say I'm a 6 personally, and they don't have to share why. And it's okay for them to say they're a 5 or a 6 or a 7 at work. They're the ones we want to catch as well. So if we know that someone's struggling personally, we can provide support for them. If we know they're struggling at work, we can try and provide the assistance that we need. Their team can join and rally around them to provide them the assistance. And we track those metrics, not formally, but each of the leaders in the sessions will know, oh, you know what, Lizon's been a 7 for the past week. We need to have a broader discussion with Lizon because we're not getting past the 7, either personally or business, to see if she's got all the support that she might need. So that's a metric that falls out of a daily practice in every single meeting. And the crew do it, right? So, hey, how are you? Let's start with how are you? And they go around. And the crew remember how everyone are. And it's okay not to be an 8, 9, or a 10 on it if you take the net promoter score approach. It's okay, right? But so that would be another metric or another way that we can track. We also have the Great Places to Work study, where there are a series of 40 or 50 questions that get asked, where we don't get the specific by individual, but we certainly get the responses of where we sit within those areas, and we look at those metrics as well. And because we have an open culture, we do encourage and we do get feedback from people within the crew as to where they're at and what's working and what's not working. And quite frankly, if you are passionate about creating a high-performing team with an outstanding culture, your gut's going to tell you whether things are good or not good. And you've got to go with your gut.
Thank you. So hopefully that's helping this person. I think it's very well answered. And another question we have, so that one is more about the different maybe generations we have currently in the workplace.
Yeah. Interestingly, I understand that it's said that younger people don't complain about issues. I think they do complain a lot. And that's a general statement. That's not fair to say of all of them. Right? I think it's the environment they're in that will allow them to, to either complain or not complain. Our goal is to understand what it is that they're experiencing, and it's not a complaint. It shouldn't be seen to be a complaint. It actually should be seen to be an opportunity. If this is their experience, sure, we can look at it through a lens of Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, and this is what they do, and they're not resilient, and all of this stuff that exists that's negative about them, but there's wisdom in what it is that they're experiencing. And as leaders, it's the younger people we need to be very mindful of, because they are going to be the future of the business. And the business does need to pivot to cater for the way those younger people think, the way that they have been raised, whether we agree with it or whether we don't. That's who they are. That's how they have been raised. My generation, we had our stuff that people had to deal with. So I think what's important for those younger people is giving them what they really crave and they have been taught to seek, which is a safe space, a place where they can ask. Having said that, that doesn't mean we need to tolerate anything that's not within line of what we deem to be acceptable within our organization. So if there's things where it's like, oh, I don't think I should be working after hours, etc. It's like, well, that's the nature of the organization. That's the nature of where you're at. We don't want you working after hours either, by the way. Just to be clear, we're not asking you to go and sweat and burn the candle. It's not about that. But if you want to be, oh, I know I shouldn't be working more than 40 hours a week, etc. It's like, well, maybe this just isn't the place for you. I'm sure there are places you can go where it will be. So again, staying true to who you are, but being sensitive and cognizant to what it is and understanding what those individuals are about is really important. And if you have culture as front of mind, and if you are always concerned about the experience that your crew are having, then you should be able to elicit the information. And if you can't elicit the information, perhaps they're actually not right for you, because they're going to be a silent cancer going through your organization, which you just don't need. Encouraging that environment and encouraging people to be able to speak up without fear of retribution. It doesn't mean that when they speak up, they may if someone speaks up about something and they get a no, being able for that to happen without them feeling later, oh, I'm now going to be victimized because I raised that issue, or I brought that up and I can't tell my boss this, etc. We don't want to have that environment. And that's my role, and my executive's role is to ensure that none of our leaders behave in that way, and we create that space. But it doesn't mean that we'll acquiesce to what everyone wants to do all of the time. Ultimately, we have a business to run. We have customers that are our partners and our partners' customers that we need to serve. And we have a group of people in the organization all working together. So we will do whatever we can to assist an individual and to elicit from them what's going on from them, positive or constructive. And then we'll do what we can with it. If they don't want to share, well, you're kind of stuck, and your gut's going to tell you what's going on for them anyway, because their performance will be indicative of their happiness.
Thank you. I think I would share that. That's helpful. Thank you. So if you have more questions, please bring them on now. You talked a lot about experience. Experience with partner, like experience with partner, experience with the crew. So can you share more about your view behind experience?
Yeah, for sure. So a few different things. One day I will write a book called Taking the IT Out of Bullshit, because I've seen, pardon my French, but that's what it's going to be called. Because I've seen a lot of stuff that happens in this industry, which happens in most industries, I'm sure. The thing about the experience, Lizon, is that I've worked for some outstanding managers. I have worked for some horrendous managers. I have taken from the outstanding what has been, what has worked well, and seen why they have been so successful. I've taken from the hideous managers and seen why they have been so challenging. And the amount of chatter and effort and work that goes around trying to work with someone who's difficult to work with, or who doesn't manage particularly well, or who's a detail-oriented, tick-a-box kind of manager, doesn't trust anyone. I've seen the grief that happens with that. So that's insofar as taking the goods and the bads and working with that, not just from my experience, but of course from all of the discussions that you have with individuals in different places, etc. And I've also made some almighty screw-ups running teams. I have done some really terrible behaviors as I was on my way through and as I was trying, and I still make mistakes and I still don't please everybody, and I still don't. There's always growth for me as well. And I always say you can't teach someone experience, you can just share it. So in scenarios like this where I can share anecdotes or share things that have happened, doesn't mean it's going to happen to everyone else, doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's just, here's the experience, take from it what you might and see if that helps. And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of just watching what happens and basing it on my own moral compass, which again is going to be different to everyone else's moral compass. So what I think is okay, others may not think is okay, etc. That's going to happen. I'm not saying that at all that I'm the oracle and at all that I've got it right. I still keep making mistakes. I still keep tripping over. But they're just opportunities to grow and learn and find out from others. What have they done? The How Are You, for example, came from a lady called Sharon Edmonds. I was in a group session. She was running it this way. I was like, what a great idea. Let me bring that back in. Let me see how I can bring that into the organization. So, there's so much that happens in the way of experience, and just being able to see that and take from it and then listen to what the team is saying. That's what's really important too. You still can drive to an outcome, but of course, if you have everyone on that journey with you, you're going to get there a lot quicker and easier. It's really that simple. Simple in theory, difficult in practice.
Yeah, we are all doing our best with our, I like the moral compass, and that is different for everyone. And having empathy, listening skills are key, that we can stay on the train, that we understand how we move forward, is essential. So we have 2 more questions that have popped up, so I'm going to share them.
Best practice regarding connecting with individuals in rural locations, connecting with individuals in rural locations that have to be on site.
So it's I would say it's virtual, like remote working.
Connecting with remote workers, yeah, that's a really great question, and it's been an ongoing again area of focus. So our UK organisation has started and continued to be fully remote based. Our US business, where we have people, I think, in 14 states across the US, is entirely remote. So bringing all those people together in one office or even one space is quite difficult. And then through COVID, we moved to a remote work like everyone did, and we stuck at a remote work with a shared space that people can go to in the different locations. So I think the scenario of how you connect with people in remote work, in remote work situations, is quite specific to the individuals and quite specific to the locations that they're in. And I know that's a really generic kind of statement. Let me drill into that a little bit more. You can do all sorts of things as a business. You can create virtual catch-ups in teams and do virtual beer sessions. You can run competitions. You can bring people together to do online challenges. You can do all of those things to bring the teams together. Very much so. You can also organize to have people meet somewhere, etc. My view is it's not just the company's responsibility to facilitate that outcome. My view is that the company enables the outcome to take place, and certainly the company has a responsibility to do things and make sure they happen, but it's very much about the team. What does the team want to do? Hey, I'm remote. I'm feeling like I'm not connected. Thank you for sharing that with us. What would make you feel connected? What would have to change so that you could feel connected? Oh, I'd love to catch up with my team for drinks once a month. Fantastic. Have you spoken to them about that? Happy for you to do that. We're happy to fund it. Have you spoken to them about doing it? No, I haven't. Well, maybe you should do that. And that's also a way of just getting them to take ownership and accountability and responsibility for making what they want to have happen as an outcome. Knowing, okay, cool, I can go do that. Yeah, you can. Let's go do it. So I think it's really about, again, listening to what it is that the team might want. And sometimes it's just not going to be possible. So if we look at our US business, trying to get all of the people in the US business into one location for a period of time is very, very difficult to do, and often can be quite expensive to do time-wise, and it just can be very difficult. So we try and work out other ways. What is going to work for all of you? How can we make it happen? And we're going to work towards making this outcome happen and let them know what we're trying to do. So I think transparency, I think understanding what people want. Some people are very happy on their own. They might be an introverted personality who finds it obtrusive to be forced to come to a team event online, that they find it doesn't, don't come then. If that's what it is for you, like there's a balance between understanding what's great for the whole and what's great for the individual, and working out where that is going to be. So it is difficult. There's no question. I don't think there's any magical answer to it. And I think it's about taking the time. So for me, I make myself available to my crew all the time. Like, they know that they are my number one priority. If they want time with me, please just ping me on Teams and let me know you want time. And if it's not convenient, I'll tell you that there's something else there that perhaps we'll arrange a time. And if it's something really important for you, I will drop whatever I'm doing. Right? If we were in this session and someone had a massive issue, Lizon, I would say, Lizon, I'm really sorry. I've got to exit this. I have someone who cannot wait the 15 or 20 minutes. I'm sorry, they just can't wait. I have to go.
Yeah.
So it really is, as a leader, making yourself available and letting people feel comfortable that you're available too. Again, no one easy answer, and it's not an easy challenge to address. But if you listen and understand the individual, determine whether what they're asking for is something you can deliver on. If not, is there a win-win? And if you still can't get to the outcome and it's the individual that has the challenge, well, then let's have a different discussion around, well, then maybe we're not going to be good for you long term. Maybe we don't suit each other as a business, and that's okay too. That's okay. I don't want to hold people back. I don't want them to be unhappy. But also, we can and will do everything that everyone wants us to do. It just doesn't, that's not life. It's not reality.
Yeah. And I really like to double click on this ownership, accountability, that yes, the company can provide, but as well as part of the crew, you have ownership, you have accountability. And sometimes we can go through limiting belief or feel that, no one done that before, so I won't be able to ask. And how do you empower people to realize that, yes, they have ownership, they have accountability, and they can voice out maybe ideas or things that they are not seeing that maybe would be welcome in the trend?
Yeah, it's time, Lizon, time, consistency, other individuals. We have one individual who posted on LinkedIn today a story of what they were feeling around the company. They sent something internally. I said, hey, you should write a blog about this. And they said, oh, well, I don't use social media. And I said, I'd love to have a chat with you about why you choose not to use LinkedIn. Just curious to understand it. All of a sudden, this individual's posting stuff about their experience. That's what gives other people confidence. The people within the organization sharing their experiences, like, hey, you can go and have that chat. I've had that chat and it was fine. I've been there and it was okay. That's what's going to make it work. I can sit here and say, come to me, I'm open, my door's open, talk to me anytime. People don't. I even run sessions like, hey, have a half-hour session with Ronnie. Pop in, ask me any question you want. Again, unless people have been there and seen it and seen how others are treated, it's hard for them to put themselves out, because most people come from organizations, and I refer to them as damaged children, where they've worked in crappy places, they've been sold a dream. And that's not to say every place is. There are other fantastic places to work. There were 6 more fantastic places to work than us in the Great Places to Work study, for example. Right? There are other wonderful places to work. But it's the unfortunate majority, from what I see and what I've seen with people coming into our organization over the years, unfortunately, the majority are mistreated. They are often coming in with a lot of baggage, etc. So it takes time for them to trust. I always say that when we hire someone, we trust them implicitly, but we know they don't trust us. And nor do I expect them to trust us. Human nature has it that they won't trust that company that's employing them until they've been and seen and done, and they've watched and had a look around, etc., and listened to the experiences of others around them. So I think it's really about having that lens across it that makes the big difference, and then letting, again, the crew, who are custodians of the culture, encourage one another to work with each other and to do things and to give them the confidence and comfort to do so. And when they don't, providing them the support and the training so that they can. Some people prefer working in the office because it makes them feel like they are truly working. How can we convince these individuals to embrace the virtual team model? I think there's a personality type there. You know, I think the extroverts really struggle to be at home on their own. Some people like to bounce ideas off others, etc. And I think it's that this question's a really interesting one, because the question that I'm seeing asked a lot now is, how do we get people back into the office? Or how do we stop them wanting to work in a virtual team? So, and I think it's if you're operating in an environment as an organization where it is entirely remote and the individual can't work in a remote fashion, and you can't find a way for them to be either with their colleagues or in a cafe or in a shared work environment where they feel they have other people around them, I'd be curious to know, do they need to be in the office with their colleagues, or do they just need to be around people? Do they need physical contact? Are there ways that you could facilitate it? And if not, well, may not be the right company for you, because this is how we operate and that's not working for you. So let me help you find a new job. And I've had that discussion with people in the past, like, hey, if this isn't working and we can't get a win-win that's going to make you comfortable and work for us as well, win-win, not just win for you, we can't do that. I don't want you to feel bad for finding another job. Let me help you. Let me see if I can speak to an organization who does have people in the office who perhaps is looking for something like what you've got capability. I'll make some intros for you. Because you're never going to fix that problem if that's what they really need. As you know, their human need is to have that connection and physical connection, and it can't be worked out. It has to be with their colleagues. Not the right job for them.
Yeah.
Not the right job.
Yeah, that I find this question interesting as well.
But it's also, I think what's critical too is to understand what's stopping them embracing the virtual team. Maybe they have some fear. Maybe they have some concern. Maybe there's a growth moment for them in that. Maybe there's something that can be addressed to make them better. And we identified this a few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. We hired a coach into our business. All they were there to do was to coach my leadership team. We since pivoted from that, and we now have a coach in our business that's there for everyone. Full-time crew member whose role it is to help people grow personally, not just at a work level, help them get over their beliefs, help them get over the challenges that they're experiencing. You know, that investment in our crew pays off in spades. Our crew become happy. Again, once they trust that they can have that confidential conversation there, that they can get the assistance, and that's the broad environment. You can't just drop it in a shitty workplace and expect it's going to work. Like, it just won't.
And what I really like is the fact that it's for everyone.
Yep. Absolutely. We're all on the train. We're all shoveling coal. We're all doing what we need to do. If I've got to come back and shovel coal, well, so I will. Not too special for that.
Yeah, so I'm just mindful of the time as well. So, so thanks a lot. What would you like to leave our listeners or people that are watching or that will watch the replay with? Like, any more wisdom you wish to share? I think I'm really sharing experience, and hopefully there's some wisdom in there for some, for those who are watching. What I would share is, if you want to know more, connect with me on LinkedIn. Do put into your message why you want to connect, because I am a little bit more discerning with the connection requests where, I know I'm going to be sold something immediately after I hit accept. So do put something in. I'll watch the LinkedIn Live. I'd love to have a chat with you, Ronnie, etc. And then we can set up some time and I can talk to you specifically if you didn't feel confident to put your questions in, or if you have any further questions that you want to ask me. I'm on Teams. My email address is publicly available. Ping me on Teams, hit me up. I'd love to be able to share what I know. And I'd also love to be able to learn from others who have had counter experiences or things they're doing that say, hey, Ronnie, this might be valuable. That would be really great for me too in return. Every time I get a question, I'm learning something about it from where the question comes from. And I'd also really encourage everyone to go and Google Insentra train and read the train story and let me know your feedback on that too. Really would welcome that.
Lovely to see you too, Sam. Thanks for joining, buddy.
Yeah, that made me think. Have you thought of doing like a TED talk on the Insentra train, or like the culture? Like you could do like something like that. Like what like maybe like you never know what's if we build some intent, what is the future look like for Insentra or for you? Like, are you looking for partnership? Are you like anyone that would be like, if, because like LinkedIn is a networking tool, right? So if people are watching and we can add value, so you shared 1 hour with us of content, and I think we can be very grateful for that. So anything that could help you, like any introduction as well with people in specific
that's really
area.
lovely. I didn't see this as a direct marketing event where I could say that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just,
I'm very happy.
I'm like, why not? I know.
If there
but
are
why
IT
not?
businesses globally who are struggling to grow, who are challenged with getting into new areas of focus, which we have areas, we'd love to talk about how we partner and how we can augment and help them grow their business. As it relates to doing a TED talk, etc., one of the things I will be doing, like every leader, will do at some point in their career, is I will be writing a book about the train story. Not just about what, when you look at the train story, there's various sections and it's growing. I'm currently editing it with more things to put in that I've learned over time that become really paramount. But I will be writing a book about it, unpacking each of the sections around this is how we did it, this is what we learned, these are the challenges, watch out for this, be aware of that. So that will be coming at some point in the future of my career, for sure. Okay. So right now, just happy to talk to anyone who wants to listen, really. I can talk the legs off a chair, clearly.
Thank you, Ronnie. It was a pleasure to have you in the Thoughts for Changemaker. So hopefully people watching it can be inspired to take action, bold and courageous actions. And it all starts with thinking differently, or like tweaking how we think, how we see things, and then take an action, do one step. At any level, wherever you are in the world. And so follow Ronnie on LinkedIn, because there is a book coming, which might be very enriched in a lot of wisdom. So keep following Ronnie.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lisa. It's been lovely to have a chat with you and to be able to share it with everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.